Welcome, everyone, to the Retirement Success in Maine podcast. My name is Ben Smith. Allow me to introduce my co-host, the Lost Kitchen to my primo, Curtis Wister. How
Ooh,
you doing today, Curtis?
all right. I'm doing well, Ben. Doing well.
So we, of course, when you start throwing out names like Lost Kitchen and Primo, you know, I'm pretty hungry to start, right? So
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
already hungry, and there's one thing that you and I both agree upon is that we are really both passionate about really great food,
Yes,
right? And
that is
that's
true.
probably bled into our show here a little bit, right? Is every
Hmm.
we've had our travel expert Carrie Forberger Heatherman on, so we've gone through that with episodes 3, 32, and 70 about
Hmm.
traveling and introducing food into your travel mix and building your itinerary around it.
Yeah.
Episode 59, we had the creator of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, David
Yep.
Page, right?
That was a
So
good one. Yep.
talking about really how to experience food and kind of some tips and tricks about going out to restaurants and kind of what to order, what not to order. But
Mm,
one area that we really haven't gone to is how to experience the best of the best foods in our own backyard, the state of Maine,
yeah.
right? And that's what we wanted to have a show about. So I know after we get done this episode, I'll have a much better idea of what I'm going to do for lunch today.
That's right. That's right. So obviously, Ben, you just kind of teed it up there. We really want to talk about food in the state of Maine. So I can't think of a better guest than who we have on our show today. We have actually the Maine Foodies. So they are food bloggers that have been documenting their Maine food adventures as a hobby since 2020. The Maine Foodies live in Portland, Maine's Art District, and are passionate about supporting their local Maine restaurants, bars, and farms across our beautiful state. So they're continuously seeking the best food and drink experiences Maine has to offer. Their content on their website, so Instagram and TikTok, along with their website, have been connecting their audience to inspiring food and travel experiences across the vacation land and beyond. And when I say that they're connecting, I mean it. Their content reaches 460,000 people, and about 24,000 interact with their stories on a monthly basis, which is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, they've partnered with Dunkin', Maine Spirits, Oakhurst Dairy, Stonewall Kitchen, the White Barn Inn, and Wild Maine Blueberry Weekend. So you yourself can join their 27,000 and growing followers on Instagram and TikTok by searching for the Maine Foodies. So with that, please join me in welcoming Alexis and Erik Dirkmaat to the Retirement Success in Maine podcast. Guys, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Thank you for having us. We're so excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Curtis. Thanks, Ben. Looking
Yeah.
forward to chatting.
Well, and I got to say, just first thing, you have our permission. Pause our show, right? Just hit pause. Go to Instagram, go to TikTok,
That's
search
right.
the Maine Foodies right now. Look, because I want you to be looking at what Alexis and Erik are coming up with, right? So I want you to be able to see some of the things we're going to talk about here. So go follow it. Bring up your phone and let's kind of get into it. But the first part, we always start our show is we always want to hear a little bit more about you both, right? So I'd love to hear about your story, where you're both from, and what brings you to Maine.
I love it. Yes, happy to dive in. So I think first and foremost, we get this question a lot. And so we just want to put it out there. We are definitely from away. So we have
Okay.
a very
Okay.
strong affinity for Maine and absolutely love Maine, but we are not Mainers, I guess, by definition, as
Okay.
like a true Mainer would be quick to point out.
Mhm.
But I grew up in Connecticut.
Yeah, and I grew up down south in Tennessee.
Okay.
And we both moved to Maine officially in 2020, and that's really when we started the Maine Foodies. Was right after moving up here. But my family has lived in Maine for a while now, so it was a great kind of homecoming to be closer to them. And gosh, it was back in 2016, but we did get married in Maine, so definitely have always felt that Maine connection.
So your married life is from Maine. Let's kind of put it
There
that
you
way,
I
go.
right?
love
There
that.
you
Yes.
go.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. But
Yeah.
yes, we'll
Okay.
go with that.
So the follow-up question, right? So here we go. All right, it's 2020. There might be a little something that might have happened in 2020,
Little
right?
something. Yes, yes.
And here you guys are looking at food and thinking about food, and you say, I want to just start a social media account that's dedicated to our food experience, which by the way, 2020 was a very weird food experience
such a weird
era,
food
right?
experience here, right?
So,
I know. And it's funny. So we actually started off, I think really, I don't know that we would have been here or not without the pandemic. So it's really interesting. We found ourselves officially in Maine now and just clamoring to try, of course, the lobster rolls, which I know we'll probably get into more in a little bit, but we're like, we've got to get around and try. We've got to find the best lobster roll, basically. So we started kind of documenting that amongst ourselves. Right when COVID hit, we actually made like an Excel spreadsheet, and we started, what is it, the like the atmosphere of the place, which was a little hard to judge at the time, being everything cheap out, but the components of the lobster roll, et cetera. And then from there, we just kind of said, I don't know, let's start sharing this. And I feel like that's where it was born. What would you say?
Yeah, and so you'll see in our page, if you scroll back, a lot of takeout boxes. So
yeah.
Look appetizing. So we're really thankful that restrictions have lifted and that we're able to get back to some more sense of normalcy and exploring the state and being back in person, because that really is,
that's
in my
true.
opinion, the best part.
That's true. Those early photos were like, how do you make a takeout box look really cute?
We have this color styrofoam. We got some plastic. No, that's so great. So fast forward a little bit, right? You've been doing this now for pretty much 2 full years. Here we are at the end of 2022. Incredibly. Was it surprising to you both, kind of the growing reception you've gotten and have been getting still about the food in Maine experience?
Well, it's funny, when you put content out on the internet, we started off doing it for ourselves, documenting almost like a diary of our experiences. But we've found through that documentation, that process, that food is really that universal connector, right?
Okay.
People have memories of different places they go. Everyone needs to eat. And so, yeah, we've had a great following, great interaction. We love getting recommendations from our followers, and it's been fun to kind of grow that community.
Yeah, I think it's very much a common language. So we found that, kind of regardless of folks' backgrounds or, kind of their walks of life, you can really kind of connect over food. And I think Erik brings up a good point. It's been fun as it's continued to grow to even have more of that two-way dialogue. So, we know folks look to us for recommendations, but we also know that there's a lot of great recs that other folks have. So it's been really fun to kind of, throw something out there like, hey, we're going to this area, or we're looking for this type of cuisine. Does anyone have any recs? And it's been amazing what we get back as well.
That's
nice.
Awesome.
Well, because I know when we had David Page on from Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, one of the things that he was saying about the success of that show, right, was that people like to eat with their eyes, right? Is that they really can kind of they see it and they can start smelling it, they can start hearing it, they can really start kind of visualizing the food experience. So, which obviously, I will say just from kind of my own observations that I don't think anyone has captured the way you guys have in terms of kind of that same experience of it. And I know obviously from like my own personal experience, my wife is a big Disney fan, right? So we watch the Disney food blog and like what's going on at Disney with the food scene. But that's part of our experience because it's part of our vacation. And if we have good ideas on food, then those are things that in the moment don't become stress points, right? They don't become things that we argue about. Oh, I feel like Chinese. I feel like pizza. That burger looks, what do we do? And we have finite options and that becomes stress points. Yeah. So that's where it just feels like that's a natural outlet for a place where people vacation a lot to, especially in the summer, to ease. And I don't know this. I didn't do a scientific survey, but it feels like that there's a lot of reason why that would grow because of that. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's funny. We get a lot of requests from folks that, I think Maine is kind of having a moment in general in the travel space. It's very hot right now, right? It's a destination that a lot of people probably have on their bucket list. So we definitely get followers that'll reach out and say, I'm coming to Maine for the first time. And they really are planning that whole travel experience around the foods to try. So I think, the video-based content that we do put out there, it's pretty easy for folks to not only say, wow, this is kind of the style of place I'm looking to go, but also specifically the dish, right? Or what it is they're going to order at a place. So agreed, 100%.
So Curtis kind of talked about your evolution and asked you about the last 2 years which you've captured. So let's fast forward here, right? As you guys are working, right? This isn't your, this isn't the paying the bill stuff. So how does your food blog evolve? Is it kind of like, hey, this is still our hobby and kind of, or is this something where you feel like you're getting sponsorship and sponsored content? Does this grow even more?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're working on retirement.
Right.
Maybe a couple more years away from that. But no, Alexis and I both have full-time jobs, and putting out this content, part of it is the experiences that we like to have. So we are going out to eat, we are taking vacations, and we're bringing our followers along with us. So that's still a natural fit. But as it starts to grow, I mean, the possibilities could be endless. If people like what we're doing and see value in it, I mean, it's exciting, and we do want to keep doing it. So I'll answer your question by who knows. We're ready to go along on the ride.
That's right.
Nice.
That's awesome. I love that. So again, obviously kind of the core of our conversation today, we just really want to talk about Maine and the food scene in Maine, some of the best foods in Maine. Kind of a first question we like to ask when we get into things. We just love to build this like foundational knowledge. So I want to ask you guys, how would you describe Maine food, right? What is it that makes the Maine food scene unique?
I can start us off. I think it's very much locally centric. So when we think about kind of food across the state, I think it's very connected to, where all the ingredients come from, whether that's farms, whether that's from the coast and the sea, whether that's from the oysters that are being grown in some of the rivers. It's just got this very, very core tie back to a sense of place. I think we always feel that. And I think that's unlike a lot of other places in the country where you go to visit. I think there's some of those foods that you just unanimously equate with the state of Maine, right? I think of an oyster, a craft beer, a lobster, like it's very, very iconic. And I think another interesting thing is our connection to the chefs here. So, I'd say folks are starting to understand more and more the different chefs behind some of the more award-winning restaurants, but that's growing in Portland and beyond. And so I think, you're starting to see some of those chefs even have more following as well.
Yeah, so it's not only where your food is from, it's who's putting your food on a plate. And I think that's a really fun experience to go around and see all the creativity across the state.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you kind of teed up my follow-up perfectly for me. So obviously, Ben and I talk about on our show, no matter what we're talking about, it feels like sometimes Maine is 2 or 3 or 4 different states just because of all the different geographies we have. So can you just talk about like what are some themes you see in those different areas of Maine? I know you touched on a little bit with the coast, like so Portland does their thing. The coast may do a little different thing. The mountains way up north in the potato field. So can you just kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, for your followers and everyone listening, Maine is a huge state, right? And it's an extremely diverse state in what is around geography, the mountains, the forests, the oceans, the lakes. So I think, some things across the state is, there is great food and great experiences to be had everywhere. There's a lot of outdoor connection. So weather season, everyone thinks of summer in Maine, but, winter in Maine as well. The number of times we've been around a bonfire, and you can share a drink and you're meeting locals and connecting over food. I think that's an extreme commonality, as we've traveled.
Yeah, I think I would add to that. I think there's almost more similarities than there are differences, right? I think some of the core of the similarities across the state all tie back to that local centricity and that connection to the season for sure. I mean, we find a lot of the more experiential based dining opportunities are very much rooted in the season. So what we're doing in the winter, embracing being outside and cold and sitting around that campfire, like Erik mentioned, or, in the summer, it's later in the evening and it's warm and you're sitting under twinkle lights or something like that, right? It's very much embracing that time of year. But I do think, there is definitely still some differences as well. I think, Portland is very much kind of the place that's on the map when you think about Maine. And so I think it definitely has a lot. And I think there's a lot of dining choices within the city and kind of that surrounding area compared to other areas that just don't have as many chefs and locations. Sure. But I think the thing that constantly surprises us is the caliber, right? Even when we're going to some of these more remote areas and you're like, there's nowhere near as many options. they're so wonderful. Like you're like, wow, this could rank in Portland, right? It could stand its own there. So I do think overall probably more similarities than differences.
Nice. Well, I want to ask another question here too, because this it feels like as Mainers, right, and people that are residing here in Maine, and we're here for all the seasons, right? As you said, is there's beauty in all of it, right? Maybe in like February, like for a couple weeks,
maybe that's debatable, right?
It's a little less maybe of where we want to be. But I know obviously we all get the question where we have that family or that friend that comes from somewhere else, and they come into Maine either for the first time, or maybe it's I only have a small window to be in Maine. And it feels like we all get the question, where should I eat? I'm from away. I want to experience Maine. So what would you guys here? You guys are the foodies here, right? So what would you say if they had a short window and you said they wanted them to try Maine and Maine breakfast, lunch, and dinner? What would you kind of steer them towards?
Yeah, well, first I would tell them to go check out our blog, Maine Foodies. Right, go look at that, because we've got a section specifically for that. But I think part of the recommendation when people come from away is you need to meet what they are expecting. Lobster rolls. They want water views. They want good beer and good times. Where can I drink? So I think, going along that line of thinking, you need to, in the back of your pocket, you do need to have them. So where can they go for good seafood?
Yeah.
Where can they dine out and see the water? What lighthouse can they go tour and see? What tour can they go do? Because that's part of it too, right? You got to work up an appetite before you do go eat. And then one other thing that as people visit and need to keep in mind when they visit is make sure you have reservations.
Yeah.
The population has exploded in Maine. The tourism is on fire as well. So if you do want to go and experience, have some reservations.
Yeah, and I think I go back to those iconic foods. I think folks definitely lobster is number one on the list, but I think craft beer, oysters, blueberries. I know we're in Portland, so this answer will be a little bit Portland centric, but our go-to whenever we have someone visiting us is to go to Portland Head Lighthouse, because I don't think, anything else really personifies the Maine coast better than those views at Fort Williams. And Bite into Maine, the lobster roll food truck is there, and there's just nothing better than enjoying that lobster roll looking at the Maine coast. So that's a definite for us when we have visitors.
Awesome tips.
All right. So we've now gotten, so we're about 17 minutes into this recording, and I think we've mentioned lobster rolls 5 or 6 or 7 times. So my question now, we're doing it. We're doing the deep dive into lobster rolls. So obviously there's a ton of debate here. I'll call it friendly debate. Sometimes it gets a little passionate, I think. But who has the best lobster roll, right? How should it be made? What's the ratio? Lettuce to lobster. How much lobster is too much lobster? Is that a thing? What type of roll? Do we grill the roll? Is there lemon involved? Mayo? Extra crunch? So you guys are the experts here. You volunteered to come on this show. All right. What are your opinions on how to create the perfect lobster roll? And where have you kind of found that is your number one lobster roll so far?
Yeah, so I think step one, Alexis mentioned in the beginning that, when we started the Maine Foodies, we started with an Excel spreadsheet to go keep track, because there are so many different offerings of lobster rolls. I think one of the first things that we did is she and I aligned on what makes a great lobster roll, because like you said, there are so many opinions and everyone's right? Sure. Everyone's right. So in our opinion, right, a great lobster roll starts with the lobster meat. Right, there's got to be ample claw. I want to be able to see it. I want the whole piece of it on a toasted bun, lightly chilled, little bit of mayo. So Maine style is ours all day long. You're going to have a large contingent that say Connecticut style with the warm drawn butter is the way. It's not for us.
Mayo.
Mayo all the way.
Mayo.
All right.
Yep. White sauce. Yep.
And I know I plugged it before, but I would say we do really enjoy making our own at home. I will say that's been fun to go, get some either whole lobsters and then get the meat out ourselves, or just get local lobster meat and make our own at home. But if we're going to go out to get one, bite into Maine, and their Maine classic style roll is definitely our number one.
All right.
Yeah, and it's, as you have followers come up and visit Maine, and as they're around, one of our favorite things in the summer is to do a classic lobster bake, right, in the backyard, and then make sure you buy enough leftovers so you can make that lobster roll for the next day or two.
That's right. It's almost like Thanksgiving, right? You got to plan for the following days, right?
And you know, that's a good point. I'll add, we actually get quite a few folks that reach out to us that are like, you know what, I actually don't want the lobster roll. I want to know where I can go for that authentic lobster dinner. You know, they want the boiled lobster, they want the corn, the potato, they want to wear the bib, I think, right? The whole
crackers, yep.
Crackers, exactly.
Yep. Nice. Well, so we covered lobster. So the next part, I know that we have a unique and growing donut scene, or is it depending on how you call it, is it a dough of actually made donut? So some are cake, some are dough, all that. So obviously there's a few throwdowns right now going on around the best donuts in the state. So similar question, right? So what are the qualities you found elevate the best donuts? And where can we find some of these? Because I'm a donut fan. I'll put it out there.
Yeah, Ben, I am too. I mean, I am definitely the sweet tooth in this relationship.
Sweet, savory, for sure. I still love a good donut.
So I have a lot of opinions. And again, donuts are a very personal preference, right? So like, I like a classic yeast donut, light and fluffy, a delicious cream filling. I think donuts, what makes them fun is they're portable and they're appetizing to look at. So everyone, do you want chocolate? Do you want caramel? Do you want a crunch or fruit? I think that's a lot of fun. And we found some great spots around the state. So some of our favorites, I mean, locally here, a classic in Portland is Tony's, is a great one.
Old school donut shop, very classic.
Yeah, Congdon's down the coast a little bit in southern Maine. Wells is a great one. And then Ruckus.
In Rockland. They're great donuts as well.
And they're a little bit newer. I think they just celebrated, their anniversary here recently this past year. Yeah. And they're making some pretty amazing donuts up there.
Yeah.
Okay. So now okay. So Curtis and I go to Rockland like quite a bit. So.
I was literally there yesterday.
Yesterday.
I was there.
Yeah. It's like, all right. So
well, you got to go early. They sell out. I will tell you, the first time we were up in the Mid-Coast this summer, we slept in. And by the time we got there, the sold out sign was on the door and we were crushed. So we went a few weeks later and we got there nice and early. So pro tip, don't sleep.
Okay. So, but obviously, so we talked about covering then the donut, right? But then I know that there's things that not only make donuts unique, but then they're combined with other foods to make new dishes. So I saw a post you guys had last summer, so summer of 21. You're at Congdon's in Ogunquit, and they had a honey dip donut with melty cheese hanging over a bowl of tomato bisque, which was representing a grilled cheese and tomato soup. Just pores of cheese coming out of it. So I guess my question here is, what other unique dishes have you been experiencing around donuts in Maine?
Love it. And we love that dish. And that one's actually at Food for Thought in Ogunquit.
Oh, gotcha.
Seasonal, yes, it's a seasonal spot down there, but they do use the Congdon's donuts. So great going on there. And it is truly like a grilled cheese on a glazed donut, and it's heavenly. So highly recommend everyone adding that, especially as you're coming into the state, right? Like you're headed up further north. That's a great little stop off. So definitely recommend visiting Food for Thought. But I have to say, I think that one probably takes the cake for the most iconic donut dish that we've tried. But we do love, for those that ski up at Sugarloaf, 88 Donuts has a great little brick and mortar shop right off the beach there. And they've got the little minis. They come out hot, and they also have a food truck in Portland, but their spot up there after skiing, we just love that. So that's another favorite.
So I have another question kind of moving throughout, but now I have follow-ups about the grilled cheese donut. So is that breakfast? Like, what's the move with that? What time of day
we enjoyed that for dinner.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's one of the things too with food. There are no rules.
That's true.
Right? Eat what you want when you want. Make sure you get your workout in, but have fun with it.
I love it. Perfect answer. Perfect answer. So obviously, kind of Ben and I in our practice here with our team, we have quite a few foodie clients, and ourselves, I think we'll deem ourselves as being food fans, and kind of fancy that fine dining experience, right? And you guys have a blog post out called Inspiring Must-Do Maine Dining Experiences. Can you just talk about what are some of the highlights from your list, including some of the foods you sampled?
Yes, absolutely. We absolutely love those experiential based dining. I'll say experiences again, but we love it. So I think some of the highlights, this past summer, we had the opportunity to go out to Cabbage Island Clam Bakes, which is right off the coast of Boothbay Harbor.
Great.
They take you out there by boat and you spend the afternoon with that traditional down east clam bake. And it's just so iconic with the literal rocky coastline of Maine, and they're just putting those twin lobsters on your tray. It was delicious. So that one is a must do. Reservations definitely need to be made when they open up in April. It's a tough one to grab, but highly recommend that. We also had the opportunity to visit the Lost Kitchen back in 2020. And I think that one has probably become one of the more famous experiences in Maine, with that really tough to get reservation by postcard. But it was nothing short of dreamy. And I think what Erin French and her team are doing up there is very neat. So those have been very big standouts. But gosh, we also did a Turner Farm for your birthday, which was
so this past July we went out to Turner Farm, so took a lobster boat out to the island, and it was great.
A lobster boat, and they take you out there it's on North Haven Island, right across from Vinyl Haven. Out by lobster boat, and you just pull up to this island. You can see the barn kind of in the distance, and they do this farm to table experience right in the barn, and it was communal style tables, so you got to meet. You didn't know who you were going to sit next to. We ended up meeting folks honestly from all around the globe that were there at this dinner, so it was a very cool way to connect with one another. And then talking about the mid-coast, we actually got up to Rockland and Rockport this summer to try Primo, and that was fantastic. So I think that was one that it was surprising we hadn't done yet, but always great. And so fun to explore the grounds there and just enjoy a glass of wine in the barn out back first.
It sounds incredible. So I want to ask kind of a follow-up here. So, right, we're talking about the Lost Kitchens. We're talking about the Primos. Do you guys have any just kind of tips and tricks or hacks, kind of how people can go about securing reservations to places like this? I know the Lost Kitchen is unique and she does the postcard thing, but anything you guys can kind of share?
Prayer, but I think definitely following, I know we mentioned the chefs earlier, but kind of following in some instances the chefs that are behind some of these experiences on social media is a great way. Also, we'll make a plug for ourselves here. We like to remind our followers when it's time to make those reservations. So you can follow us too. But I think you were saying like go with friends as well.
Yeah. So Alexis, is one of her strongest abilities is being organized with reservations. So I have no part in this. So it's really knowing there are certain restaurants, like for example, the reservations will open 60 days in advance. You need to call 60 days in advance to reserve your table. And so just be on top of it, make a list, know what you want to do. And then if you end up without a reservation, have your running list of which places allow walk-ins.
Yeah. And I also think though, too, if you can band together with friends, so like maybe you have some other foodie friends that you want to make these adventures with. And I think there's power in numbers by each trying to secure those reservations.
That's great.
Well, I want to ask, so we've covered donuts, right? So we've covered lobster rolls, we've covered fine dining. I know, so this might be more for Alexis because she's the savory person here, right? So maybe it's more towards her, but so cheeseburgers and fries, right? Iconic Americana dish. What in your eyes, so I want to ask it a couple ways. What in your eyes is the perfect burger and French fries? And then I want you to spin it towards what's the perfect Maine burger and fries?
I love it. So I'll say, I think we can both agree, similar to the lobster rolls, I think we both have a similar preference, and we'll go back to the ingredients, right? I think it's all about kind of that fresh, probably grass-fed beef, if you're not a vegetarian, and going forward with that.
Whose bun is it on?
Yeah, whose bun is it on? That's a good one. Yeah. And I would say, I think in Portland, we definitely have a favorite. Wayside Tavern, which is in the West End. It's inside the Francis Hotel. They make a great smash burger with fries that is delicious and definitely worth trying. I think if we're going to go the more Grammy, iconic Maine route, High Roller Lobster in Portland also does a surf and turf burger. So it's literally topped with lobster meat. And I think, that's a pretty darn iconic Maine burger.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your favorite, Ben? Do you have a favorite spot? I'll turn the tables for
Uh-oh.
it.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So obviously we're around the Bangor scene a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
So Blaze is in downtown Bangor, and they have super awesome burgers. So I'm gonna go with that a little bit. There is, and I will say their fries are I think they're duck fat fries as well.
Yep.
So, which I know is kind of a rip off on duck fat in Portland. I know. So Blaze is kind of my go-to burger place. And close second is Mason's up here in Brewer. Mason's, same thing. Grass-fed smash burgers, a lot of double patties. Different cheeses. They do like bacon jam on it. Just awesome. So Mason's, especially Mason's, has craft beer. So when you pair beer and burger together, so good.
So good. I don't know. I'm sensing maybe there's going to have to be a Blazes and Mason's throwdown in our future. And we might have to invite you guys and we can figure out who's wins.
All right. I love it. Mason's is big in the fry scene too. They do a lot of different like dirty fries and loaded fries and things like that.
Vinegar fries,
Yeah. Oh gosh, I knew I was going to be hungry, but I didn't think I'd be this hungry.
Same here.
Yeah, wow. I don't even know how to move on from this. So obviously Ben, actually I do know how. So we were just talking about Mason's, and they're a burger and beer joint here, and Blaze is brewing beer now too, by the way. I think their Camden location is kind of their headquarter for their beer brewing. So I am a big beer guy, or beer and spirits guy, I guess. Ben's the burger guy of the two, and I'll worry about the drinks. So I got to ask about it, right? So just kind of a general question to start off. How would you guys describe the Maine beer and spirits scene sort of from a common theme?
So common theme, I'm going to put this out there. Best in the country.
Yeah. Love it.
I think some of the beer and spirits that's coming out of Maine rivals anywhere else, right? We've had the privilege of traveling to a bunch, right? So you think of Colorado or Asheville, they're doing some great stuff, but I think some of our brewers and distillers up here are, really just on point.
I think it's one of the things when we do travel outside of Maine, we always comment to each other, gosh, no one's doing beer like they are in Maine, right? You just have that expectation of what craft beer is going to taste like, and you're somewhere else where that scene isn't quite as strong, and it's like, oh, just kind of misses that mark. So I agree with you. I think definitely best in the country.
I think a commonality across the state is most everybody is doing a New England IPA.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're going to find that everywhere you go, right? And some people may say, I don't like IPAs, I don't like this.
That's true.
Something that I would recommend if you're not a beer drinker or you're beginning into a beer drinker, there's so much variety. So it's worth a try, worth a sampler. We love a good flight of beer, right? See what you like. Because there's a lot of nuance.
But I do think it's very IPA, double IPA, New England style heavy. We had friends up visiting last summer, and that's the one style of beer she will not drink. And it was a challenge. We're like, okay, we're gonna find a spot, but Mass Landing does some nice stouts that fit the bill for that one. But but yeah, I think definitely so good. And I think also such an iconic thing when you think about the state of Maine and the food and drink here.
I love it. So now I'm going to dive in a little bit. So both of you, I want you each to answer.
Okay.
What's your go-to craft beer company, so brewer, and then kind of the signature beer that you go to?
Okay. I'll start us off. This one's gotten so popular, but I always say it's gotten popular for good reason, because it was it's one of my top favorites is Tubular at Orono Brewing Company.
That's our neck of the woods.
Nice.
All right.
Yes.
All right. I love it.
So good. I know that's really kind of blown up, and it's probably not as niche as some of the others we could say, but I absolutely love that.
I mean, I feel like you have to say at some point, because it really helped put the beer on the map, is Allagash White. I mean,
there's nothing more classic.
There's nothing more classic. It goes to everything. It's a little bit lighter. I mean, you'll see that in most places too. So when you leave Maine,
exactly,
you can distribute elsewhere. But I mean, Bissell Substance is putting out some great stuff. Mass Landing, Good Fire, Lone Pine. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, but I'm going to go with Tubular.
I love it. I love it. It's a good thing we're doing this on a Friday too. So
that's right.
So not only can I go eat after this, I can go find some craft beers. So another follow-up. So in the kind of distillery and signature drink cocktail market, what are your go-tos there, each of you?
You know what, we found a new craft distillery this summer that we are low-key obsessed with, and it's all the way down in Wells, but it is worth the drive down there, and it's called Wild Bevy.
Okay.
They just opened up, and they are distilling. They're their own distillery, and the craft cocktails that they're putting out were fantastic. It's a beautiful space, so that one's definitely top on our list. Cocktails in general, I think we both really enjoy gin. So we're definitely gin drinkers, but Wild Bevy would be our rec in terms of a spot to check out.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I want to ask about, let's kind of zoom back out, right? You've done a lot of the foods. So let's talk a little bit about, you've obviously been seeing in terms of documenting food in the state of Maine, right? So I almost kind of view this as not only just from the experiential, but you're also documenting the food scene, right, in a real-time basis. So you're able to kind of look at this and kind of say, hey, here's themes and trends that are happening almost within these time periods. So I guess my question is, where do you see the food scene going, right? Is we're like, based on what we're doing now, and as you said, kind of the experience with the chef, and you're seeing more of the relationship side here happening. How does the food scene continue to evolve in upcoming years in Maine?
I think that's a great question, because in the 2.5 years we've been pretty plugged into it. It's amazing how it's already started to evolve. I think, we're definitely in that post-COVID environment. So folks are very much focused on that return to in-person and what those experiences inside the restaurant look like. I do think we're starting to see whether it's a second location or it's folks kind of moving outside of that southern Maine area. I think that's going to start to become more popular. We went to 555 North recently, which is kind of, that long time classic 555 staple in Portland. They're now up in Brunswick. And so starting to see more of that spread happen. I think there'll be more of that.
Yeah, and I think generally too, take a look at what's happening to the state in general. Yeah. So you do have a lot of influx of people from away. There's, because of social media, the awareness around how great Maine has always been, and how great it is to come visit. I think that's really starting to push. There's going to be a little bit of a push and pull against the classics and the new school, right? But I think there's a really fun opportunity and playfulness there, of creativity of how chefs, how business owners, how makers can kind of reinvent how food is presented and, evolve things from like a classic Maine experience to the new era.
And building off of that, I think a lot of like pop-up style events and collaborations where you're seeing chefs from different places come together, maybe in a totally different location, that's maybe even a bit further remote, and offering some of those opportunities for folks to experience.
What I think has been pretty cool, and to your point about collaboration, is you brought up Tubular, so I'll use Orono Brewing Company as an example. But so here's Abe and Heather Firth, so they go down to Portland, and they team up with Auto Pizza, right? And they go, let's have a tubular pizza. Right. So let's kind of take some of the elements of the beer and combine that into a pizza. And here's the pairing. And we're bringing our audiences together into something that's unique, something that is maybe, if we didn't have this collaboration, it maybe wouldn't have existed.
Yes. Right? That's such a good point, Ben. And I like another one that just popped in my head on us kind of similar lines. I think it was Lone Pine Brewing. did something with the Holy Donut, right? So there's kind of this like donut style stout, things like that, yes, like it wouldn't necessarily have existed otherwise, but it's very fun how the different signs are coming.
And I'll just kind of add too is again from Curtis and I maybe a little more northern persuasion here on the state of Maine, but I know from us is so we get a lot of our pull from Atlantic Canada, right? So we're getting a lot of our neighbors to the north that would routinely they would be coming down for shopping, food, but also our concert scene that continues to build and grow and it's so it's now becoming a here's Bar Harbor. Let's go camping. Let's go do the hiking. Let's experience Bar Harbor. Even taking the cat back and forth. But then they go to a concert. They experience the food scene. They do so. I can see where even in the pandemic, where now the restrictions are easing between the international lines here a little bit, is being able to infuse this and kind of. I'm interested to see how that grows. Right? Is because we've been growing, as you said, is kind of this cocoon state where people are coming out just from a drive to Maine because that has been the destination as a drivable location. But what happens now that people have that taste of it and how it grows maybe a little more national? So I'm interested to see. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that take. I think definitely the pull from, yes, like our neighbors to the north, to your point there, but also, even broader than that, I think Maine is just very much on the map globally. I think it's a spot that folks really want to come check out. And so as we see more and more of that influence and again, folks moving here from away, folks continuing to visit here that maybe have never had the opportunity to do so before, that's going to bring a whole new lens of creativity and creators, I think,
So I got to ask a bonus question.
Okay,
So this has been our question to our travel expert, right? So here you are, the Maine Foodies. Mm-hmm. So obviously you don't just stay in Maine. So when you go away, right? So how are you building your foodie experience when you go outside the state? What are you looking for? How do you build it? How do you kind of, again, I know what you're looking for here now, but when you go somewhere else, how do you do that?
I love that question because I think we spend a lot of time thinking about that. But I think one of the things that we are always looking for in a travel experience is to try to really experience that place as a local. So, whatever we can do from like a day trip or a sightseeing experience, but also when it gets down to the food, I know when we're planning our own trips, we honestly look for accounts that are similar to ours that are big in, that city or that state. And we'll actually reach out to them. And like we were saying, that two-way dialogue is so powerful. Tell me some of your favorites. I'm coming. I've been looking at your page. Like, what about here or here? And that's been a great way to really help to fine tune, I think, our own itineraries outside of the state.
Yeah. And just like in Maine, when we go away, right, we're looking for these experiences that we can come back and talk to our family and our friends about. So again, a lot of commonalities, and it gives you perspective and makes you appreciate both where you live, but then also you bring back new ideas. I think that's also why it's so important to travel, is it just gives you perspective, and it gives you a point of view.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just went to Quebec City the other weekend for the first time, and when we were thinking about what we wanted to do there, we really wanted an experience, and so we ended up going to a Nordic spa because that felt very much kind of niche to that area. We had a wonderful time, but like looking back on the trip, we both said the most memorable meal, hands down, was kind of that farm to table lunch with a glass of wine we had looking out over the spa and the river right there. So I think it was kind of that whole experience that brought it together for us.
That's awesome. So we've kind of reached, we're near the end or approaching the end of our conversation. We have one kind of final question for you guys. Obviously, it kind of goes back to our roots as a show, right? We're the Retirement Success in Maine podcast. So we got to bring retirement into the conversation. So I want to ask, how are you guys going to find that personal retirement success when we get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, another great question, and it's something we're still exploring.
Sure.
So, we hope we have a few more years till we get there.
No, but I think it's about being intentional and doing what we love and keeping that front and center. Obviously, we're still working very hard, and we schedule out our days and lives, but it's taking those moments to have fun along the journey. I think the Maine Foodies helps us do that. And I think it's just, again, that perspective, like I said before, when you leave, it's just having that perspective that it's a long game. We're in it, and we're not running towards retirement, but we do want to get there one day. And
yeah, and I think one of the things Erik and I talk a lot about too, I think this might be more generational, but I know when we look to our parents, there was this kind of point in time that they were working towards, right? And then at this point, I'm finally going to get to retirement, and then I've got this bucket list of things that I'm going to do then. I think both of our parents are doing a decent job with that, but I think for us, we've kind of wanted to adopt a mindset that's experiencing things along the journey of life, right? It's not so much creating this bucket list that we can only do at that point, but we want to be able to only amplify those experiences once we get there. So that's
that. You bring up a really important theme, and I commend you both for doing this. Is our conversation with, I think, a couple episodes ago with Michelle Dickinson was this concept, and she brought this up. The point of what you're saying about your parents is that generations right now in retirement or before it was a binge of work to a binge of play, right? Is that was the theme of, I need to sacrifice today to get to that point, and then I give myself permission to do this. Is that the generations today are saying, why does life have to be binary? Why can't we experience both of these things? Which I get from who you are, what you're doing, the fun you're having. And I know, and I will say, you guys are putting a ton of work into this, right? It's not just you show up and all of a sudden you take a camera out and you just take a photo and you're
well,
done.
You guys know from the podcast,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work, right? So you've got to love this, right? So you're getting passionate about the experience and looking forward to it, planning it, and doing something together, right? And this is something that it's creating happiness for us. And I think from a retirement perspective, it's not just a retirement conversation, it's a life conversation. And I think that's something where you don't have to be 62 and retiring to do this, that you could do this at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 150, hopefully.
Yeah. And it's about identifying what brings you joy, and like who fills you up. So who do you want to be sharing this with, and how do you want to be doing it? And then, go attack it, go execute, go have some fun along the way.
Yeah. And I love what you were saying about like less binary and just kind of more along that journey. I mean, I think it's kind of that old adage, everyone's like, find something you're passionate about and it'll be so much easier. But we're so passionate about food experiences, and we have so much fun with it. And so it's something that, we hope is in our lives for forever.
And again, for us, for Curtis and I, this is something where we're very privileged and able to have these conversations of, let's explore life. And it is in a lens of aging and retirement, but to do things of like, look, there's lessons we can learn from everybody here. And there's things that we can all take away regardless of age, whether you're 90 or 10, we should be able to kind of take these things. So thank you so much to the both of you for coming on and sharing this today. Cause first of all, I think we all take for granted the great state we live in and the beautiful experiences that we have available to us. And I think we all get stuck in a rut of, hey, I always go to this diner, or I go to that place, or to that thing. And we just need maybe we need to break out a little bit. So hopefully the goal of today's show for our audience is, we're giving you permission right now. You can take some notes and you can go, hey, donut, we can go lobster roll, we can go fine dining, whatever. Take something out of this and go do it. And then while you're at it, again, either Instagram or TikTok, follow at the Maine Foodies.
That's right.
Give these lovely guys a follow. And thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. This has been so much fun.
Take care. Really I gotta just point out real quick how lucky we are that we just spent an hour talking about food in Maine.
I know.
And all the best food and drink in Maine. And again, we're recording on a Friday, so that just is even double layered on top of it.
We gotta wrap this up, Ben, because I'm going to get some food after this. We talked about those burgers downtown. So
yes. So it's again, really, really pleasure to have Alexis and Erik Dirkmaat on. Again, you can kind of see why, as we talked about, their just reach is exploding because of people just being able to say, hey, I didn't know that this was there. Then they share it with their friends, or they tag their friends in it. Like, you got to check out this ooey gooey donut, grilled cheese, melty thing into tomato bisque, or so what's cool is it just takes these very kind of unique experiences that you almost like have to fall on and kind of tumble into and be able to go, hey, these are available, and it's a, you can go to this restaurant yourself and go try things. I think that's so cool, because us in the state of Maine, it feels like we just get in the rhythm of, okay, on Friday night we go to this place, or this place, and it's my rotation, and we order the similar foods at the same places, and we've a lot
Say
of us
hi
have
to
lived
the same people.
exactly. We lived here our whole lives,
yeah.
but we have such a really building food scene here that is amazing, and there's some really great experiences, and we don't have to travel and get on an airplane to go do. We can do it right here, and that was really what we wanted you as our audience to get out of it today was, hey, there's some really great things, and here's Alexis and Erik kind of like sampling it all for you and highlighting the best.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool. Real quick, when Erik was talking about kind of how this journey started for them, they were just essentially doing a journal or video diary of their own experience. And then I know we got into the conversation more about how just people in general connect over food, and that's where it kind of grew to. But they didn't even kind of start out with this kind of mission or goal per se. They just wanted to remember or record for their own purposes, kind of where they're going and what they're enjoying. And it's just really cool to see how it evolved.
And I will just say, we fell in love with both of them when they started talking about how they spreadsheeted their whole experience. So that was the moment right there that we said, all right, you guys are our people, right? We're in lockstep.
Data folk around here.
Yes. Did you do a pivot table when you did this, or whatever?
Graphs going. What do we got?
Yes, bar charts. Had to be a pie table, right? Because it was food. So
that's true.
This is true. Yeah, I thought they did a fantastic job again from us being able to just introduce. There's some more things going on in our state. Here's a couple that are just highlighting things in our state, and I think that's something that we don't do very well as a group, is we don't kind of talk about the things we're doing really well. And when we had the opportunity to do that, we wanted to be able to bring that to you as well. So I know from kind of a food piece here, and I didn't offer it, but I know we want to probably have them back in maybe another year or so and get an update. But so Curtis, where can people go? I know we mentioned a little bit in the open. Where can people go to find some more resources of today's show?
Yeah, absolutely. So like we do with all our episodes, we're going to have kind of a website blog page for this show. That URL, it's blog.guidancepointllc.com/78. So we're at episode 78. Again, on there you'll find not only links to our show, our videos, but we'll have links in there for the Maine Foodies themselves. So their website and blog, we'll have their TikTok, their Instagram page. So feel free to kind of dive in. Again, we opened the show with telling you to go subscribe to all their stuff, and we're going to end it that way too. So again, go check them out. Hopefully you enjoyed having them on the show. I know we did. And again, thank you all so much again for your continued listenership. And we look forward to the rest of our conversations.